call the meeting to order. Would all who wish join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So agenda adjustments, I have one. It would be item 8A, Roman numeral 2, II, so it would be a teacher nomination. Are there any other agenda adjustments? Is there a second on that adjustment?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Any other adjustments? All those in favor? Okay. Next, we move to consideration of the minutes. Minutes for May 14th have been presented to us. I would motion to approve as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? All right, all those in favor of the minutes as presented? Okay. So next up, we have approval of the warrants. Do we have any warrants tonight? All right, we'll slip them in and,
I don't have them.
all right, we'll add them in.
Do we need them tonight? Do you
Lynn's
want
not
to
here.
get
I
'em?
mean, we do have email approval. I think we're okay. We have email approval, so Lynn can write checks, and we're meeting next week, so she actually doesn't need authorization in advance for regular payroll, so we'll just do them next week. Acknowledgements. You get to start, Jake.
Sure. I'd just like to thank the individuals that put the outing club at the OMS outing club trip together for getting every kid back safely and putting up with that. Thank you.
Michelle, did you have any acknowledgements?
No, not this time.
Okay. Yeah, lots going on this time of the semester. I guess I would just add the All-State. Orono was well represented at the All-State Choir as well as the All-State Orchestra. I only got to hear the choir, but they sounded fabulous. So congratulations on that. Meredith?
Sure. I would like to acknowledge the Orono High School Spring, our end-of-year concert last week. I am told I wasn't able to make it, but I'm told it was a wonderful evening for all of those performing groups, so congratulations to those groups, and also to the middle school for hosting a very well-attended step-up night for our rising sixth graders next year. That was mainly student-led, so that was really cool to see.
Those were both of the ones that I had, so I will ditto on both of those, and that's it for me. Thank you.
Some things that people have already said, but also I'd like to acknowledge the Orono High School Spring Play was this past weekend. And 2 great performances. Lots of sport teams are moving on to playoff season at this point. And the canoe team had a really great weekend in which they placed the first place single-person boat, first place 2-person boat in the Piscataqua race, and then 3 members of the team traveled to New York and competed in a 70-mile race in which one of them won.
Any acknowledgements we missed?
I did have 2, I guess, that we missed related to high school athletics. See that Chris Libby was named PVC Coach of the Year for boys high school track, and I believe that for the PVC meet, Camille Catala was female performer of the meet, so pretty impressive there.
Great. Next up is public comment. I don't think we have anybody signed up. Is there anybody who wishes to make public comment? Okay. Next up is presentations. We'll start with the superintendent's presentation.
Sure. So I wanted to just spend a couple minutes talking to the board about something that's going to be coming your way later in June. Mark stepped in to serve on the Comprehensive Needs Assessment Planning Team. And as I mentioned to you when we talked about this, that this is a new plan that districts have to put together to meet 2 requirements. One is a state requirement that's been on the books for a while that was previously called the SAU Consolidated Plan. And one is meeting a federal requirement for comprehensive needs assessment processes that have to be in place in districts who receive federal grant money. And so the state is combining these two into one plan. And we have had one planning team meeting, and the planning team is comprised of Mark as a board member and then a variety of individuals from different schools and representing different elements that are required to work on the plan. And we're having a follow-up meeting this week, and this will be a work in progress that we have to bring you something by the 19th to show you, so you are aware and can kind of, you don't have to formally adopt the plan at that point, but I think sometime this summer we need to formally adopt this plan. And it's something that we have to turn in this summer in order to receive our federal grant money. The state has taken kind of a, I don't know, we'll see what they do with it when you actually submit it. But their approach is, this is the first year. We want everyone to create this plan that reflects kind of what's happening in your district, what you're doing around data, what you're doing around needs assessment, and it'll be kind of an organic plan that you work on over time. So I've tried to take that approach with it and have it be something that we actually will use, rather than the kinds of plans that you work really hard on and then they collect dust on a shelf for a while. And there's a lot of interesting data that's in the plan that Angie has worked really hard to pull together, and that different members of the team are now kind of tweaking and refining. I think you'll find it interesting. I've shared our draft with you, so you can, if you have time and want to take a look, you can just kind of see the work that's going on. But it's something that I think you will find well aligned with our discussion on the 19th, where we're talking about our student achievement data for the spring. But the data in this plan is really a lot more comprehensive than student achievement data. It's around student behavior, student attendance, just demographics. It's around our employee demographics and kind of our administrator demographics. So lots of data points. And I just wanted to kind of prepare you that's coming your way. And it'll probably seem like it's out of nowhere. And it's just the nature of when this requirement came on board and the timeline they've given us to complete it. So if you have some time to kind of peruse that, you'll see some updates happening over the next couple of weeks to the document that's already kind of well underway. So, Mark, I don't know if you had anything to add to that. You were at the meeting, so.
Nope, it sounds like there's a bunch of very capable individuals who are putting this together, so I think at the end of the day, it will be not only checking a box off, but something that will be useful for us.
Yeah, I think so. And some of the data points are not elements that are really easy for us to pull together right now because of the way our data systems are so separated and don't talk to each other. So it's really kind of shone a light on the need for a more aligned and inclusive data system for our district's ongoing needs assessment uses.
Great. Any questions? All right. Next up, we have the OHS Student Writing Center presentation.
So I'm going to just introduce Ms. Dixon, who's the sponsor/teacher for this group. So Ms. Dixon, take it away.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments from other board members?
Kudos to you guys for doing the research and the presentation. I thought it was good and a lot of things I normally don't think of. Thanks.
Yeah, I think that's a really exciting idea. I'm really glad to be seeing this being pushed forward. Writing, I mean, there's a lot of things that matter to learn, but when you get down to it, writing and math are just skills that influence your ability to work in the workplace for the rest of your life. And so I think it's a really important topic. And yeah, I thought that was an excellent presentation. You've clearly done a lot of deep thinking about this, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
I had one quick question. Right now, beyond going to the individual teacher that assigned the assignment, presumably, are there any other avenues or resources available for students seeking assistance, or is that pretty much it? That's all done on an informal basis, though, right?
Yeah. Lots of people will come to each other in study halls or whatever, or I'm someone who likes to get another friend to proofread my writing, for example, but there's no official format for that. I believe we have someone in the English department who works with students who are having trouble also, if I'm correct. Yeah. But we don't have any anything along the lines of a writing center at the moment.
Thank you.
So I know you mentioned in the first presentation about the handbook you're creating to help with kind of sustainability of the program, since you guys have done a lot of legwork this year, and then Eli's the one that remains standing after this year. So where do you imagine this going, like in the next 2 to 5 years? Have you guys talked about that? And so can you just kind of...
More than a dozen.
Yeah, that take up study hall time, they wander around, and they're just very helpful. And,
So, yeah. Wow.
Would there be some form of vetting process in place for who would get to be one of the coaches, or is that a volunteer? I mean, have you given any thought to that? Okay.
so those students could then be coaches the spring semester. Yeah, they have the rest of the year to share their.
Presumably, they'd have to perform at some level in your course, I would assume, right?
They do, and the course is open to anyone. And it's called CRADE. And coaches don't have to be the best writers in the school, but they really need to be the best listeners.
Mm.
We go through the course and learn how to problem solve, and because they might be helping somebody with writing for a science class and have no idea of the content, but can look at the text of the writing and help with that. So we're not looking for the best writers in the school, but we're looking for people who can problem solve and really work with other people.
Okay.
I would just like to add to that. For example, when we went to visit UMaine, we worked with we did practice tutoring sessions where their UMaine tutors worked with us, and then we worked with the UMaine tutors. And I worked with a graduate student who's a multi-year graduate student taking, a class way beyond my level, and you can still have something valuable to add just as another perspective and as a sounding board. So it's not about being the best writers or being the most knowledgeable people in the situation. It's about being another. It's about being another set of ears, another brain to look at the same problem and to help guide you and just give you basically give you a chance to talk to somebody else about your ideas is the biggest thing.
The other thing I was going to say is really about the second presentation. It's good timing with our facility study, as you mentioned, and some of the comments you mentioned were definitely themes that came out of some of the stakeholder feedback in terms of flexible spaces to use for kind of small group learning or lab approaches, and also kind of how to redesign our library space to be more of a learning commons for lots of different uses. So some pretty exciting designs you chose for your presentation, and I think it's good timing to bring this up given where we are in that process.
So speaking exactly on that topic, I was curious, I wanted to pin you down to commit a little bit. You talked about kind of the closed off spaces where, kind of cozy for two people versus a very open space. And architects have written whole books on how space influences communications and interactions. I wonder if you have, and especially because there is nothing set in stone, but there is some opportunities to actually do some custom building at some point or build out at some point. If you have any further thoughts about what you think is the right context for the kinds of activities happening here, is it a wide open space where there's 30 people who can interact? Is it a small space? Is it something in between? I'm just curious what you think. If you could pick your optimal space, what would you think it would be?
What I like personally is UMaine had a cool thing where they had a large open space with couches and big tables, but they also had some screens set up in a way that people could break away into smaller spaces and work in a more intimate area, which I think works when you have a big writing center. I think at the moment, Foxcroft is probably the better example for us. They're a smaller one that's starting more recently. And what they have is a very small, intimate space, but they've made very welcoming and opening with a lot of light and lighting. For example, they made a very significant point to make sure it's well lighted and a welcoming space. And I think that's probably, at the moment with the size of our writing center, at least that's where I would be thinking is it doesn't have to be a big space, but one that can be made welcoming.
It all comes back to really that adaptableness of a space. So something that we can just set up to be used in an inviting manner and be able to say, hey, it's okay to come in and ask about your writing and such.
Do you think something partly carved off from the library, if, for example, it's in the library, or do you think something that's completely open to the library?
Right now, I mean, there is this one section of the library where it's just one long table, sort of, and in front of each little chair section, there's some outlets. So being able to section that off would be nice, because then you can have the side-by-side tutoring sessions. Downside of that would be you wouldn't have a lot of good collaborative space.
But just
It'd be really hard to section off that part of the library just because there are books down there that people need to get to.
But just thinking blue sky, right? If you could start from scratch, would you want something that was partly cut off with just maybe a big door, or would you want something that's just like part of the library?
Well, when we talked to Foxcroft, they said again and again that it's very important to have a separate space for the writing center, just so it feels a bit more separated from like a classroom setting.
Also, it's important so that people know how to find you and can not just, sign up. We've been talking about making people available to sign up online for a tutoring session, but it's also important to actually have a space where they know they could come find people. Foxcroft's gotten to the point where they have somebody on staff for every single one of their blocks so that anybody who wants to can walk in and get help whenever they want.
Mm-hmm. Yep, makes sense. Great. Any other questions? Any other last thoughts that you want to get in? No? Okay, thank you very much. That was a very well done presentation.
Thank
All right, moving on to discussion items. We have board meeting dates. So tonight is, I think the idea is this is just a discussion. We have a draft in front of us, and then I think we'll give any feedback, and then we'll come back for a full vote to set our, of course, you all know we can change and probably will end up changing something, but to tentatively set our board meeting schedule for the coming year. So is there any feedback on what we have?
So I have an update.
Okay.
From when we sent this out. May 28th had a question mark beside it because there was a potential conflict with an arts event that night, but that's been resolved, so the 28th can be a board meeting night, and it will no longer conflict. And the arts calendar is now set. They say that everything's locked in. Isn't that right, Angie? I think that was the last date, so everything's locked in now with that. And also, I talked with Lynn a little bit about kind of the pacing out of meetings through budget season, and we looked at what we did this year, and you know, we think that this could be a workable schedule that perhaps we will not have to adjust, but if we do, we can certainly do that. The 14th of May, though, is not a full board meeting. That would be the annual budget meeting. Well, it'd be the annual budget meeting.
Public town hall.
Right.
I was gonna ask why we have to.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this looks good so far. The only area I was humming in on was the 23rd of April through the 7th of May, depending on sometimes having an extra week and going on the 30th is nice, but I'm kind of happy to leave that up in the air until we get closer and see what's the right thing to do. And I do think, like we talked about, we're probably going to need most of those double meetings in the fall, just because we're going to have a lot of facilities workshopping happening. We also are going to, at some point, have to workshop around surveys as well. So, looks good to me.
And one December meeting is that's what we did this year, and it's kind of hard to fit two in unless we.
Yeah, the only reason we've traditionally done other December meetings is based on the superintendent evaluation. Those are usually large executive sessions, not necessarily full board meetings. But I think we've been talking about trying to maybe potentially shift that to in sync more in the spring with other. So I guess that's another area we just have to wait and see where we end up. But assuming that that's not happening then I think that's fine.
Just a quick question with the whole facilities thing. Will there be will there be more meetings open to the? Will be more like public planning meetings like the one this spring that are not on this list too? Is that just sorry, kind of off topic, but
No, it's a good question. I don't know that we've really talked it through yet. Wouldn't shock me if we tried to have another big meeting like we had, you know, the chili supper meeting. I also think we're going to have some meetings in this room or in the library where we're hoping to get large public turnout. And those might be some of the second meetings, you know, the 18th of September or the 16th of October.
cool. Thank you.
Any other feedback?
Looks fine for now. Well, I'm sure we'll have to adjust it, but.
All right. So we'll have this come back to us next week for a final vote. Next up are staff nominations and resignations. I think there's no resignations, correct?
No new ones that
Yep.
I haven't reported.
Okay, so we have the co-curricular nominations. You want to make those?
So we have 4 nominations for co-curricular positions for the fall. All of them are around the fall musical. So fall musical director, Cammie Carter, director, Cammie Carter, music director, John Hawley, choreographer, Daniel Perkins, and tech director, Daniel Perkins, all at OHS.
So I will make a motion to approve the nominations as presented. Is there a second?
I will second.
Is there any discussion? Is it secret what the show is going to be, Eli?
Show next year is Into the Woods. That's been decided on.
Looking forward to it already. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Okay. Next up, we added a teacher nomination.
Yes, so we are nominating for the OHS English teacher, the full-time position that was a vacancy that was created by a retirement, and that nomination is for Erica Dixon to be hired in that position.
Okay, per normal practice, I would make a motion to go into executive session under 1 MRSA 4056A, appointment of employees. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? All right, Reg, you want to join us? So I would make a motion to approve the hire of Erica Dixon for the English position as nominated by the superintendent. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Congratulations. All right. Just looking, yep. So next up, we have a series of executive sessions. Just trying to think. I don't see anybody. Sometimes we move public comment up, but we don't have anybody here for public comment. So, all right, why don't we go ahead and dive in? So we will need to do one executive session per topic. So I will make a motion to go into executive session under MRSA 1 405. Oh, yep.
Are you just not gonna do anything after the executive session? You're not gonna do any committee reports or
We will briefly do.
agenda items, or you're just gonna do these and go home?
We're going to do date and time of next meetings, and we may briefly do reports, but I don't think there's anything of real substance after this.
Because traditionally you've done everything before you go into.
Before we got into executive session. No, nothing. No, I mean,
I don't think we have anything. Curriculum committee hasn't met yet, is meeting this week.
Spruce has nothing.
Spruce has nothing.
yeah, policy met.
Just wanted to check if I need to stay around to report out to my loyal viewers.
No, I mean, we're gonna read the dates
You
and
might get the
times.
first ever report of the wellness committee. No, we're not.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, so I'll make a motion to go into executive session per 1 MRSA 4056A under appointment and evaluation of officials. Is there a second?
I will second.
Any discussion?
Should we dismiss?
Oh, student
Student
rep
board.
is dismissed.
I would think so.
Yep.
Right, that's all that's left, so.
Yep. Student rep is dismissed. Any other discussion of the motion? All those in favor? Okay.